The bitter wind cut through the night like a sharpened blade. Wrapped in tattered clothes and fading hope, a young homeless girl trembled on the park bench, clutching her only possession, a threadbare blanket. Then, from the darkness, a shivering stranger appeared. Without a word, she shared her blanket. What happened the next day would change both their lives forever. It was the coldest night the city had seen in months. The fog hung low, curling like smoke around street lamps, casting a pale, ghostly glow on the damp sidewalks. The familiar hum of distant traffic felt muted, swallowed by the heavy chill that had settled deep into the bones of the city. In the small, forgotten corner of an abandoned park, under a skeletal tree stripped bare by winter's cruelty, sat a girl no older than 16. Her skin was a rich shade of ebony, but her face told stories of hardship and loss far beyond her years. Her eyes, wide and searching, reflected a flicker of something fragile, hope, or perhaps just a desperate wish for warmth. Her name was Amina. The blanket she wrapped around herself was no thicker than a scrap of cloth. Its faded threads frayed at the edges, much like her own spirit. It had once belonged to someone she loved, a keepsake from better days, now weathered and worn by the biting cold and countless restless nights. She shivered beneath it, her breath misting in the air as she stared into the empty darkness. Around her, the city moved on, bright windows in distant buildings glowing with comfort she could only dream of, the muffled laughter of people indoors, unaware of the cold outside. Amina's hands were numb. She rubbed them together, trying to summon warmth that wouldn't come. The little food she had eaten that day was long gone, replaced by the hollow ache of hunger gnawing at her belly. Her shoes, cracked and soaked through, left faint prints on the wet pavement, the sole peeling away with every step she took. The weight of her loneliness was heavier than the cracked watch she still wore, a relic from her father she'd found months ago on the street, a symbol of time that seemed to stop just for her. Amina's story was one of quiet resilience. Orphaned after a house fire claimed her family, she had been passed from shelter to shelter, each place colder than the last. No one really looked for her, a ghost in the city's shadows, invisible except for the occasional sharp glance or hurried avoidance. Yet beneath the dirt and scars there was a spark, a softness that few saw. Her days were spent scrounging for scraps and her nights in restless sleep beneath the unforgiving sky. But the hardest part wasn't the cold or the hunger. It was the absence of kindness, the endless feeling of being unseen. Tonight, that was about to change. A sudden movement caught her eye. From the fog, a figure approached. He was a man, older, perhaps in his 50s, hunched beneath a heavy coat too thin for the night. His face was obscured beneath a weathered hat, and his eyes held a quiet exhaustion that mirrored her own. His hands trembled as much from cold as from something else. Fear? Desperation? Amina didn't know. But what she did know was that he was worse off than her. Without hesitation, she tugged at her threadbare blanket and lifted it, offering the thin fabric to the shivering man. Their eyes met, hers wide, imploring, his filled with disbelief. "Take it," she whispered, voice barely audible. He shook his head at first. "I can't. It's your only blanket." But she pressed it into his hands anyway, a silent gesture of compassion more powerful than words. The man hesitated, then accepted. For a long moment, they sat side by side, sharing the fragile warmth of the blanket in the shadowed park. "Why?" he finally asked, voice rough and low. Amina shrugged, eyes distant. "Because no one else will." He looked away, swallowing hard. The cold air hung heavy between them, filled with unspoken stories. "I lost everything," he said after a pause. "My family, my home. My name is David." "I'm Amina," she said softly. They sat, two broken souls bound by the cold and a fragile thread of kindness. The next morning, when Amina woke, the man was gone. The blanket returned neatly folded. Beside her, but wrapped inside the blanket was a small, worn leather pouch. Curious, she opened it. Inside lay a handful of coins and a note, written in shaky handwriting. For your kindness, a seed of hope. One day your warmth will return to you tenfold. Amina's heart trembled. She clutched the pouch tightly, eyes scanning the words again and again, as if the promise could somehow keep her alive through the long, cold day. What she didn't know was that David had not just left a simple gift. He had gone to extraordinary lengths to change both their lives. David, it turned out, was once a wealthy businessman who had fallen on hard times, betrayed, robbed, and cast out by those he trusted most. That night, seeing Amina's selfless act stirred something deep within him. A memory of the man he used to be, the father he once was. Determined to repay her kindness, David made a choice. He began small, offering her food from a nearby cafe, returning every day to check on her. Slowly, a bond grew between the two, fragile but real. Amina found herself telling him stories of her lost family, of dreams buried beneath the rubble of her past. David listened, sometimes with tears in his eyes, sometimes with quiet determination. Together, they dreamed of a new beginning. Weeks passed. The winter began to loosen its grip, but Amina's life was still precarious. One afternoon, David surprised her with an invitation. "Come with me," he said. "There's something I want to show you." He led her to a small, modest office in the heart of the city. Inside, a stack of papers lay on the desk, a document bearing Amina's name. David explained, "I sold some assets. I want to invest in you, your future." Tears welled up in Amina's eyes. "Why me?" she whispered. "Because your kindness saved me when I was lost. You reminded me who I was." With David's help, Amina found shelter, returned to school, and slowly began to rebuild her life. But more importantly, she found faith in herself, in humanity, in the power of one small act to change everything. David, too, found healing in giving, his own fortunes restored not by money, but by the rekindling of hope. Their story became a whispered legend in the city, a testament to compassion's miraculous power. One warm spring morning, beneath a sky brushed with soft pink and gold, Amina and David walked through the same park where their paths had crossed. This time, she carried her own blanket, new, thick, and bright. They smiled, sharing a quiet moment. "Remember this place," David said softly, "where kindness was the first step home." If this story touched your heart, consider subscribing for more inspiring tales of hope, healing, and unexpected kindness. Hit the like button and share this with someone who needs it today.